Stone Age DNA reveals origins of builders. So are they are they pushing it? That's what I would expect. The ancestors of the people who built Stonehenge traveled west across the Mediterranean before reaching Britain, a study has shown. Researchers compared DNA extracted from Neolithic human remains found across Britain with that of people alive at the same time in Europe. Already you need to tell me the pool, because if the pool is very small, then it's not representative to the population, the entirety of the settled populations, but just to say, the Neolithic inhabitants were descended from populations originating in Anatolia, modern Turkey, splendid, so like Fertile Crescent. Already that would make me think Semitic, but let's see. That moved to Iberia before heading north. They reached Britain in about 4000 BC. Details have been published in the Journal of Nature, Ecology and Evolution. We might check this one. The migration to Britain was just one part of a general massive expansion of people out of Anatolia in 6000 BC that introduced farming to Europe. Before that, Europe was populated by small traveling groups which hunted animals and gathered wild plants and shellfish. One group of early farmers followed the river Danube up into Central Europe, but another group traveled west across the Mediterranean. DNA reveals that Neolithic Britons were largely descended from groups who took the Mediterranean route, either hugging the coast or hopping from island to island on boats. Some British groups had a minor account of ancestry from groups that followed the Danube route. Okay, so we are talking minor. This is key. And you know why I'm focusing on this? Because population replacement is very rare. Complete population replacement. Population mixing happens. Populations whereby there is a new ruling elite happens in history quite a lot. But the complete misplacement of an entire people from a large expanse of land, all of them are either completely exterminated or completely relocated. And now an entire new people takes their place. It happens, but it's very rare. And a lot of the times, this is what people that push this kind of ideas, whether it be Afrocentrism or Afrocentricity, as they want me to call it, whether it be Afrocentricity or whether it be other fringe ideas, they do base this on it. And I've watched a video, I wish I had it here prepared, but I might look for it. But I've watched a video that said that the ancient Romans were black, but then at one point, the entirety of the civilization, but then at one point, migrants from the Caucasus, so Caucasians and whites, entered Italy, kicked everyone out, and replaced them. That's what they say. This is impossible to justify, because in order for that to happen, it would mean that you would have to literally exterminate everyone. And this was something that, you know, was tried by the Austrian painter and the Austrian Painter Fan Club in Germany. They tried to focus that and they failed. They tried to do it with gypsies, they tried to do it with Roma, they tried to do it with people with disabilities, they tried to do it with Jews, and they still failed to completely eradicate. And they used modern technology, I mean, not vintage for us, but modern for them. So imagine doing that in the classical period or in the Bronze Age. No, the reality is that whenever there is a moving of people, like for instance, when the Anglo-Saxons, the Angles and the Saxons reach Britain, it's not that they completely annihilate all of the Brittonic that were living there, a Celtic population, by the way. They intermingled. They mixed. There was some connection and some interlocking in the social fabric. So yes, ruling elite, some tribes, some villages would have been predominantly Anglo-Saxons. Other areas would have been with a ruling elite that belongs to a population, to a people, and then the ruled belonged to another people. This happened, for example, with the Normans and the Anglo-Saxons after 1066. It's not like the Normans arrived with the Dutch in Normandy and now all of the Anglo-Saxons are annihilated. No. If you're a modern English person, it is very likely that you have a strong connection to the Anglo-Saxons because they weren't completely annihilated. Likewise, when the migration happened, then the Anglo-Saxons, warriors and tribes, reach Britain, they didn't completely annihilate the Brittonic element. There was an intermingling in the fabric. So even if this minor amount of ancestry that is coming through the Danube reached Britain, they didn't replace the original inhabitants there. Most likely they either lived in separate communalities and separate settlements, or maybe there was intermingling, or maybe there was stratification and within the social strata. And I'm not making this up. This is what happens when you see the relocation patterns and how population and settlements, particularly in this period, occurred. And this is an important element to consider before we see what they are trying to push. When the researchers analyzed the DNA of early British farmers, they found they most closely resembled Neolithic people from Iberia, modern Spain and Portugal. Okay? These Iberian farmers were descended from people who had journeyed across the Mediterranean from Iberia, or somewhere close. The Mediterranean farmers traveled north through France. They might have entered Britain from the west through Wales or southwest England. Indeed, radiocarbon dates, careful because Dr. Hawass is not going to like this sentence, suggest that Neolithic people arrived marginally earlier in the west, but this remains a topic for future work. Okay, in addition to farming, the Neolithic migrants to, I think they use this term on purpose, and I say as an immigrant, by the way, but I know BBC well, to Britain appear to have introduced the tradition of building monuments using large stones known as megalithics. And this would be very interesting if it's true. And I hope they provide the basis, the foundational basis on this statement. And if it's true, I'll say thank you for teaching me something interesting. Stonehenge in Wiltshire was part of this tradition. Although Britain was inhabited by groups of Western hunter-gatherers, for some reasons, in quotes, when the farmers arrived in about 4000 BC, DNA shows that the two groups did not mix very much at all. Great, so they lived in separate communities, fine. So they both exist though. The British hunter-gatherers were almost completely replaced by the Neolithic farmers, and that is the statement that I already find difficult to believe. I might have to dig deep with the team and have a look at this statement, because as I say, apart from one group in Western Scotland where the Neolithic inhabitants had elevated local ancestry, this could have come down to the farmer groups simply having greater numbers. Right. We don't find any detectable evidence at all for the local British Western hunter-gatherers' ancestry in the Neolithic farmers after they arrive, said co-author Dr. Tom Booth, a specialist in ancient DNA from the Natural History Museum in London. That doesn't mean they don't mix at all, it just means that maybe their population sizes were too small to have left any kind of genetic legacy. Co-author Professor Mark Thomas from UCL said he also favored a number of game explanation. Professor Thomas said that the Neolithic farmers had probably had to adapt their practices to different climatic conditions as they moved across Europe, but by the time they reached Britain, they were already tooled up and well prepared for growing crops in northwest European climate. Study also analyzes DNA from the British hunter-gatherers. One of the skeletons analyzed was that of Cheddar Man. This one was big area of contention, isn't it? Recently, the Cheddar Man. I remember reading a little bit about it. I was even thinking of making a video about it, but then I forgot about it. Whose skeletal remains have been dated to 7100 BC. He was the subject of a reconstruction unveiled at the Natural History Museum last year. DNA suggests that, like most other European hunter-gatherers of the time, he had dark skin combined with blue eyes. Still, that doesn't necessarily connect to the idea that he was black, though. So I would like to know how they then say, because dark skin doesn't automatically mean black, at least in the way we use the word today. So I think what I would do at this point, in order to avoid any possible manipulation of the public through linguistics and semantics, I would say let's first determine what you mean by black. Are we using the ancient terminology, so the way the Greeks and the Romans mentioned the Ethiopians, but in reality they mean everyone who would today be considered black in the African sense? What do you mean by black? I would really want to know. And the reason why I'm asking this is because even the term white is highly contested. It's not just a matter of black. Let me in fact establish my point before we continue.